Ken Powell thought, oh, Mike Pangol's okay to drive. Why did Ken Powell think that? Ken Powell thought that first, because that's what Mike Pangol told him. He said, I didn't do anything, and I'm not drunk.
It's really coming down to the wire in a New Jersey courtroom. This man, Kenneth Powell, could spend the next 15 years of his life behind bars for a drunk driving collision that left 2 people dead and 1 very seriously injured. The twist? He wasn't involved in the crash. Welcome to Closing Arguments. I'm James Curtis.
And I'm Lisa Bloom. Well, should Kenneth Powell be held responsible for the actions of Michael Pangol? New Jersey prosecutors think so because they say Powell handed Pangol the keys to his car knowing that he was still drunk. Powell's defense attorneys tell a different story. They say their client had no way of knowing that Pangol was intoxicated and that a police officer who had detained Pangol earlier that evening on a DWI charge actually was the one who handed Pangol his car keys. Pangol and another man, John Elliott, died in the crash, and Elliott's fiancee was seriously injured. For more on the story, here's Court TV's Vinnie Politan.
He was really the kind of son that parents dream of. And we realized that dream for 22 years until it turned into a nightmare.
Bill Elliott's nightmare began when his son John, a recent Naval Academy graduate, died on a dark highway. Elliott and his girlfriend Kristen were on their way to celebrate his mother's birthday. That same night, 37-year-old Michael Pangol was drowning his sorrows in alcohol at 2 go-go bars, still mourning the death of his wife a year and a half earlier.
His friends had called me up and they told me that he was at the bar crying about why does Sissy have to die.
According to witness George Pritchett, Pangol was very drunk when he left the second bar and got behind the wheel.
He fell down, he got up and went to get into his vehicle. He dropped his keys.
Pritchett followed Pangol and called 911. State police caught up with Pangol and when he failed the sobriety test, placed him under arrest for driving while intoxicated. Pangol's breathalyzer test was .21, twice the legal limit. Police called his best friend, Kenneth Powell.
They received a call from the state police barracks asking if he could come pick his friend up from the police station because he had a little too much to drink.
But according to Trooper Bob Gates, he told Powell more than that.
I said he was arrested for DWI and could no longer drive.
As Powell and his friend left the police barracks, Gates did something that would come back to haunt him. He handed Pangol's car keys back to Pangol.
Did you have any reason to believe that those keys would be placed in the ignition that night?
Absolutely none.
Powell took Pangol back to his truck, parked where he'd been arrested. Pangol drove off and soon after veered into John Elliott's car head-on. Elliott and Pangol were killed in the crash. Elliott's girlfriend, Kristen, was seriously injured.
I do remember the headlights coming toward us, hearing the 2 cars collide together, and the airbag coming toward me, and then after that, I was out.
Powell claims Pangol told him he wasn't drunk.
Mike was an alcoholic. He was good at covering up his drinking.
Powell came upon the crash site on his way home and called 911. Police blamed Powell for the accident because he allowed Pangol to drive. Powell was charged with manslaughter for Elliott's death.
This case is about what Kenneth Powell did. This case is about the conscious decisions Kenneth Powell made in the face of a known risk.
Defense lawyers say it's wrong to hold Powell responsible for Pangol's actions.
You should look out for your neighbor, certainly. But when you're looking at questions of criminality, I think you have to draw the line somewhere where it's sane to draw it.
Well, the central question of the day is indeed, should Powell be held accountable for Pangol's actions? But James, I suppose another way of looking at it is, should Powell be held responsible for Powell's actions and allowing his friend to drive drunk? I think they're 2 very different questions.
I think they are very different questions, and I think the key is with the word and the term that you use, because I think that although some of you may be of the opinion that we're essentially splitting hairs in terms of how you interpret and slice and dice this issue, The allowing part of the question that you just posed, Lisa, I think is the key. In order to allow someone to do something, that implies that you have the power and control to prevent it. So the question then becomes, did indeed Powell have any power and control over the situation? And unfortunately, although I have my problems with this lawsuit, I think the answer to that question is yes.
So it's like the chocolate mousse that you brought into my office today. I want everybody to know that James Curtis brought in this delicious, unbelievably delicious chocolate mousse into my office. I said I only wanted one bite, and then I wanted him to take it away. And instead, you left it in my office, unfairly causing me to eat the entire thing, for which I think you should be held liable.
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But the idea, I don't believe you actually worked that into the Q&A segment. That's pretty good. But it is indeed the same thing. If indeed you have control of a situation or a something, whether it be a mousse or a set of car keys, in this case, Powell didn't actually have the car keys. At least that seems to be the conclusion that both sides are willing to settle on based on the testimony of the police officer.
Oh, but he could have gotten the car keys, James.
Well, I think that's really a point of controversy.
We don't even know if he asked his friends for the car keys. Give me your car keys. We don't even know that he said
Ricky Kleeman and Eddie Hayes had the sister of Mr. Pangle on, and she said, look, there is no way in heck Powell's getting these car keys based on her experience with him. But that aside, he had control of Pangle. He had Pangle in his car. Did not have to take Pangle back to his car. So they could have said, yeah, I'm taking you back to your car and taking him home. Taking him back to his own house, taking him back to Pangle's house. He didn't do that.
And what about that missing 16 minutes that was never accounted for in that night? What exactly went on in that 16 minutes? We may never know the answer to that. All right, all of you who think this case is crazy, should never have been brought, which based on your emails is the majority of you, I want you to take a listen to the prosecution closing arguments and see if they change your mind. Here's the prosecution closing argument by Prosecutor Ostrowski. Take a listen.
Common sense, best friends, what a reasonable person would or would not do. That's what this case is about. Early morning, July 22nd, 2000. Bob Gates was in the New Jersey State Police Barracks, and standing, or should I say wobbling next to him, unable to stand up straight, reeking of alcohol, was Mike Pangle. And Mike Pangle held out his hand. And there's a reason he was holding out his hand, because Bob Gates took Pangle's key ring, took Pangle's wallet, put those in his hat, took his loose change, took his cigarettes, topped it all off with a DWI ticket, and put it in that hand. The hand that was attached to the body, with the head that was bobbling back and forth. Attached to the mouth that had the slurred speech, the eyes with the bloodshot look in him, the droopy eyelids, the legs that could not stand straight and certainly couldn't walk without staggering. And Trooper Gates, Bob Gates, took that whole package, keys, stinking breath and all, took that whole package and handed it to Kenneth Powell. Kenneth Powell had those keys. Kenneth Powell had that drunk. Make no mistake about it, Kenneth Powell knew what he was doing there. But Kenneth Powell made a series of conscious decisions. Conscious decisions that resulted in the death of Ensign John Elliott. Conscious decisions that resulted in the death of his own best friend. And conscious decisions resulted in Kristen Hohenwater's severe injuries. Because Kenneth Powell took that package, told him, get in the car, and the next series of conscious decisions actually put him back behind the wheel where he unleashed that unsafe, unleashed that risky, unleashed that drunk driver onto the roads of New Jersey, putting everybody that came within a car length of Mike Pangle that night within a reasonable degree of a risk. And it doesn't take a biobehavioral scientist, doesn't take a psychologist, doesn't take a state trooper to know what those risks are, to appreciate what those risks are. That's what the state has proven in this case. It's what we spent the last 3 weeks showing you, building upon building block upon building block, painting this picture. And it's all become clear now. All this happened because of Kenneth Powell. The man who's been sitting in that chair for the last 3 weeks. Kenneth Powell received a phone call at about 11:30, and we know this. Kenneth Powell answered the phone. Kenneth Powell had a telephone conversation with Bob Gates. But why did he have a telephone conversation with Bob Gates? Because Trooper Gates had arrested his best friend. Trooper Gates took this guy, arrested him on the side of the road, 782 Gershel Avenue, transported him back to the station, processed him where he blew a .21 on the breathalyzer. Let's go back a little further. Why did Trooper Gates arrest him? You got to meet Charles Lord, Floyd Moncrief. Heck, they were buying him drinks. It's quite obvious from their testimony. The drunks knew he was drunk that night. One of them even recommended, hey, you know what, Mike, maybe you should go out in the car and sleep it off for several hours. That's how drunk he was. George Pritchett saw how drunk he was. George Pritchett, he's over there between 9:30, 10 o'clock, and he sees this guy comes staggering out of a bar, falls down, drops his keys, fumbles with his keys, has a hard time getting up, watches him as he gets onto the road and weaves all over, going in and out of the lanes, driving like a madman. Mr. Pritchett saw him for only a few minutes from a distance, and he knew he was drunk. Trooper Gates approached Mike Pangle, and you saw the whole thing on video, and ladies and gentlemen, that's in evidence, and you're going to get to take that back into the jury deliberation room and watch that if you want to, over and over and over again. It was quite obvious, not only to Trooper Gates, but anybody watching that video, immediately, that Mike Pangle was severely intoxicated. He was boisterous, slurred speech. He was slouching. He couldn't maintain his balance. Certainly couldn't perform the field sobriety test. Stand on one leg. You know, if this wasn't so tragic, it was almost comical. But make no mistake, there's nothing funny about this case. That brief encounter at that point, Trooper Gates knew that Mike Pangle was drunk. And Trooper Gates took him off the road.
Well, do you buy it that Trooper Gates handed the whole package to Powell, the package including Pangle with Pangle's keys? I don't usually think of a human being as part of a package, but that's what the prosecutor is arguing. Well, it's time for us to take a break, but first, let's take a look at today's 13th juror question. Should Powell be held responsible for Pangle's actions? So far, only 10% of you are saying yes, 90% say no. Log on to courttv.com and cast your vote. We'd like to know what you think. We'll be right back after this.
I'm Andrea Thompson. Join me for Court TV's Saturday Night Solution, an entire night of exciting interactive programs all about investigation. Walk in the shoes of a super sleuth with a detective. See how the smallest clues can crack the biggest cases in forensic files, and follow true stories about how crimes are solved on the system. Join me this week as high-tech detectives use everything from fingerprints to fiber optics in their investigations. Court TV Saturday Night